All right, I'm going to call this meeting to order. We did not have closed session, so please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Mr. Garcia is absent this evening. Everyone else is present. Notice to the public. Any member of the public wishing to address the governing board on a topic within the subject matter jurisdiction of the district but not on the agenda may do so during public comment period identified on the agenda. By law, subjects not on the agenda cannot be acted upon by the board except to briefly respond, clarify, or refer to staff for review and presentation at a future meeting. The board president will recognize you for public comment on matters on the agenda at the appropriate time. Correspondence?
None.
Consent agenda?
None.
There is none. Public comment? Seeing no public, I will assume there is no comment. Guests and presentations?
None.
None. Director's report? I bet we've got one.
Yes.
All right.
It's a short one.
Great.
The main thing going on is the summer reading program. So far we've had 4 special events. The first one we had was a magician who drew 105 people. We had Karen Quest, who was a cowgirl who did like rope tricks and tricks with whips and that sort of thing. We had 148 people show up for her. We had Extreme Science that drew 155. Last week we did Puppet Art Theater and we had 76 for that one.
Oh, that's cool.
So far we have 654 children registered for Summer Reading Club. Last year we only had 432. I called Vacaville yesterday to see how many kids they had registered. They have 776. So
Great. Yeah.
proportionately we're doing really well.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's the library activities.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Ongoing business, update on Miller Building.
Okay, the last time we met, I was supposed to find out what it would cost to get the building x-rayed, to find out exactly what the building is made of. I got 3 different estimates. Mike Brown from GP Radar in Sacramento said it would cost $650 to scan the building and $150 to write up a report. But he said that it would only take a few minutes to half an hour to do this. The next guy that I talked to, he said it was a day-long project. And I got another recommendation for this guy from Kaufman Engineers, who I'll talk about in just a second. But he said it would be $1,650 for them to come out from Oakland to do the radar scanning, use their picometers, which evidently measure iron amounts, do some localized chipping and some micro drilling. And they were recommended by this Kaufman Engineers in Oakland, like I mentioned. The third guy from National GPR was also based in Oakland. He said it would be $2,500 for the testing and a report. I had a guy from Kaufman Engineers come out from Oakland to look at the building a couple weeks ago. Visually, he thinks that it's most likely concrete, and that's good, rather than being unreinforced masonry, which was kind of the fear. Has 30 years experience working with buildings in the Bay Area. He's worked with buildings from as old as the 1860s. Lots of stuff from the same era that the Miller Building was built, since so many of the buildings in San Francisco were built in the decade after the earthquake and fire. So his estimate was, if it required a full retrofit, $250,000, rather than the $1 million plus that the structural engineer from ZFA had stated.
Remember, when they take samples, they have to take samples both of the original building and then the addition as well. Okay, because they can't just take samples in one location. We have 2 different constructions there. So what you need to do is make sure the estimate isn't just for essentially an analysis of one wall face, okay?
Okay.
They may assume that they're all the same, and it's not, okay?
Okay,
Go ahead.
yeah, that makes sense. He said that figure of $250,000 could be less depending on what the outcome of the x-rays shows us.
Mm-hmm. And you said that was number 2, the quote number 2?
No, the first quote was $800 total from GP Radar, second one $1,650,
1650, yeah.
and then the third one $2,500.
But the people that gave you the bid for the $250,000, they're the company that referred you to
That's the
number two,
engineer.
right?
Yeah, they were referred from number two, actually. He'd said that he'd done this kind of work with this guy, and
Yeah.
when I called him, he was willing to come out and have a look at the building.
I don't know what your feeling is, but I think number two sounds kind of like a no-brainer.
Yeah, that's what I think. I'd rather go with him, because it sounds like they're willing to do a more thorough job.
I'm kind of leery about any company that says they can do it in a half hour.
Yeah.
It's something
yeah.
pretty important.
Yeah, I'd rather have somebody
We're
come
not
out and
gonna
spend their time.
Staggering amounts of money on rehab based on a half an hour analysis of the building. So you're gonna need somebody to do some significant analysis. And some of the tests that you described at number two, we're gonna do where they actually, they're looking for rebar reinforcement in there. And so they have to do some sort of magnetometer or metal detection type tests. And number two sounds like that's among some of the things they're gonna do, so.
And you don't actually need any action from us on this, because it's well within your ability of
Yeah,
spending, so.
Okay,
Just
Yeah.
needs direction.
So, yeah, so some, just sort of general direction, it sounds like we're all kind of on the same page with you on number two on that one.
okay, sounds good.
I think the direction is sounding like number two, okay?
But yeah,
Certainly
just-
not number one.
Right, okay.
All right, great, thank you.
Sure, you're welcome.
Just one more item. I wasn't at the last meeting, but just, I know there'd been another discussion about a number of other proposals that might be done either with the Miller Building or with vacant land, okay? And I read the minutes from the last meeting, even though I wasn't there. 5 years ago, the board was investigated by the grand jury for mismanagement of over $2 million of funds. Before we start exploring the possibility of doing projects where library funds might be spent on things that aren't 100% library related, we should have a very firm and unequivocal legal opinion that we are entitled to do that, because the last thing you want to have happen is the grand jury come in and say that we are somehow misappropriating funds. So for us to contribute land or money to joint ventures with the city might be permissible, but it might not. And we need to have somebody tell us specifically in writing whether there are boundaries with respect to that, because otherwise this board faces another mismanagement accusation by a grand jury, and I don't think the grand jury will be as kind this time, considering how angry they were last time. So,
Okay.
Okay, so new business, approval of the budget and transfer of funds. Talk about it at all?
Yeah, yeah. Well, this year's budget is going to be significantly more than last year's. I am requesting a transfer from our fund balance available of $256,141 to help cover for the increases in personnel cost. We have a new clerk position. She'll be getting benefits. Last year, the board approved to pay for 75% of the employee family health benefits. Also, there's like more increased insurance and the minimum wage law and sick leave. That also, $25,000 was the maximum that could be, so that's why that amount's in there.
some of these are one-time costs, is that correct?
Yes,
Okay, I see the list of what I'll call supplies. Those supplies are really in the nature of one-time costs that we incur.
that's
Which
true.
have some useful life, I assume. Okay,
Yes, some of these things will be one-time cost.
okay.
Some of the improvements for the Carnegie, I want to like fix the steps of the Carnegie because they're all chipped. We're talking about the possibility of maybe painting the building too. And I'd like to look in to see what it would cost to get new carpeting and tile for the library. So those are all fairly major projects. A couple of the big things, big purchases I would like to make are for a self-check machine, which would be $17,000. The one that we have now is from 2002, and it's pretty old technology. Doesn't work all the time, so we'd like to get a new one.
Well, you have this listed as 34,000 though. Is it over, you splitting it over 2 years?
Oh, it's the self-check machine and the digitization of the Dixon Tribune.
I see, okay.
That, I'm working with the Historical Society on that one. The big issue that I've run into with it is that so far I haven't been able to get the Dixon Tribune or its parent company to give us copyright permission to do the digitization. When I brought that up with the Historical Society, our meeting last week, the treasurer there claims to know someone in the family that owns the Tribune, and she's supposed to talk to them to see if she can put in a word for us.
Now, have they not responded because they're holding out, or they just are just being non-responsive?
I'm not really sure.
Like, it's a communication error, perhaps?
Yeah, so far all I've gotten is we'll get back to you later. I've sent several letters, made phone calls, but I haven't actually gotten anywhere with anybody. So I think if her talking to them doesn't pan out, I'll just have to physically go down to Vallejo and talk to somebody.
It's in Vallejo.
Oh, is it?
The other option with that project is the newspapers from 1922 and before, going back to 1874, those are not under current copyright protection. They're considered to be public domain. We could digitize that part of the newspaper collection for $5,000, but I would much rather see the entire collection be done for $15,000. So that's what I'm working towards right now.
I just did a mental math, and these items you have listed here, I think, don't add up to 256. So are these representative?
Yeah, these are just things that she pulled out of the list
Okay.
that she thought were representative of the type of things that we were increasing.
All right.
One of the biggest increases last year was the cost of our IT people, ProGen. We budgeted $30,000 for that, and it cost us $57,000 for their help last year. So I'm working with ProGent and what used to be SNAP but is now Splash, the consortium that runs the Solano County libraries. Working with them to try and see if SNAP will take over some more of the responsibilities for the computers. Because we found that lots of the money was spent with ProGent, this outside company, trying to figure out how the computers were working in Solano. So they'd have to make phone calls down there to try and reconfigure things and get stuff working that shouldn't have been that
Now,
complicated.
we still have this kind of additional expense, even though we were supposed to have generated some pretty significant savings on phone lines and Wi-Fi and so forth from the moves we made last year.
The voice over IP?
Yeah, but that's not offset. I mean, we still had $250,000 of additional expenditures that aren't offset by some of those savings, huh?
Well, getting the whole VoIP system set up, that took a lot of ProGent's time, working with the phone company to try and get that all worked out.
Was that all about that mess over the relays and those trunk lines from?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so that was that was probably the majority of the cost with ProGent, was those first 3 months trying to get the
I thought they
phone
told me
calls.
they weren't gonna charge us for that because that was the system they had originally recommended and put together. That was what their tech on site said. You know, I went over and talked with him and he said, no, we're gonna do all this work for free and get it straightened out because we were the ones that originally recommended all of this.
Yeah,
So much for that, huh?
yeah, it didn't quite work out that way.
Yeah, okay.
Any other questions on the budget? If not, I will entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
There's a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Budget is approved. Moving on to revision of holiday policy 3030.5.
Yes, that one, the issue is Easter, because the policy as written says, when a holiday falls on a Sunday, it will be observed on the following Monday. And this was written before we started taking
We're open
Easter,
on Sundays.
before we were open on Sunday, so it didn't really apply. So the first year that we were open on Easter Sunday, we actually closed on Monday. This year, nobody thought about it, and we ended up working on Monday, even though the policy said that. So basically, I would just like the policy to say, with the exception of Easter Sunday.
Do we potentially want to close on Easter? Do we have enough traffic to maybe,
Oh, no, we do close on Easter, but the policy says that we need to close the following Monday.
okay.
So to avoid
Can I ask
that.
about Columbus Day? Because I thought that was eliminated as a holiday.
It's still being celebrated by Solano County, and we tag all of our holidays to theirs, because if we don't, there's problems with the circulation system.
Okay.
Does anybody have any other questions about the policy? Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
There's a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
The motion and second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. And we're moving on to institution of dress code policy.
There is no current dress code for staff at the library. This would create a guideline for how staff should dress. There haven't been any incidents that really that have really spurred this on, but just it was pointed out that we didn't have any, and we have several new employees, so we thought it would be a good time to come up with something. This would become policy 3016 in the Dixon Public Library Policies and Procedures if we choose to adopt it tonight.
Do we have to do 2 readings of it like we typically do with policies?
Sure, if
Typically
you
what
want
we
to.
do is we read it at one meeting and then consider it for adoption at the next one if
Okay.
it's a policy change.
We can do that.
Yeah.
Also, where did this language come from?
2 of my employees came up with it by looking at other libraries' dress codes.
California libraries or other states?
That I'm not sure of. I don't know exactly. They just said that they looked at several other libraries and came up with this.
So are board members exempt from this? If, 'cause I want to wear a tank top sometimes,
He wants to wear his muscle shirt and his shower shoes
Oh,
to visit the library.
and sometimes I'm in a Speedo.
yeah, there you go.
Wait, it doesn't say no Speedo, so I'm good.
You're all right, yeah. But your vulgar and offensive tattoos are gonna show, so that puts you in violation of the dress code.
It's just lower back tattoo.
Okay, so we will, we'll consider this a first reading. Will you bring it back to us next month for a second reading and a final approval?
Okay.
Great. And then our last item is approval of minutes for the June 13th meeting. If everyone's reviewed them, I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Been a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain.
Joe will abstain. Motion passes. And that, seeing no other business, that is the end of our meeting.